Hello, I'm Jacqueline, and I'm a normal girl with a teeny tiny difference. I'm a professional bodybuilder. Yes, I am that girl who enjoys going to the gym all day to build up muscles and get toned. While it all started as regular gym training, the day I started noticing some actual abs on my stomach, I got excited, and I knew right then that I wanted more muscle on my body. Training to be a bodybuilder was a big decision because I knew that it would affect the way people see me, especially because I was sure guys wouldn't find me as attractive anymore. Surprisingly, a lot of guys were actually interested in me. They were mostly guys I knew from the gym. Combine that with all the time I spent in the gym, I met most of the guys I dated there. Since then, every guy I dated was tall and masculine. These guys mainly wanted to date me because we shared the same passion for fitness. But the thing is, that passion was usually the only thing I had in common with them. I ended up getting bored quickly from talking about the gym 24/7. It felt like the guys had no substance. So, most of these relationships ended pretty quickly. My dating life was repeating itself for a long time, until I started going out with my current boyfriend, George. George was way different from all these gym guys. In fact, George was a nerdy, skinny guy who has zero masculine features. And somehow, we found ourselves drawn to each other after years of friendship. He was kind and sweet. After a while, without even meaning to, I developed romantic feelings for him and decided to be brave and ask him out on a date. I was surprised, yet very happy when he agreed. Since then, we started going out, and it was going really well between us. Our dates were so much fun. George had a great sense of humor, and his jokes always cracked me up. He simply knew how to keep me entertained. Until one day, I was with my girlfriends, and they decided to tell me what they really thought of George. They said that he was very girly and weak, and that everyone was making fun of me for being with him. To be honest, they kind of got in my head. Then I started to notice a bunch of things about George that were really annoying, and I started to feel like they were right. George was so submissive. It was like he had no backbone at all. He always agreed with everything I said and never seemed to have his own opinion on anything. When I was mad at him, he simply apologized and didn't argue. And he was scared of everything. Stupid things, like dogs and butterflies. It was so bad that whenever we went to see a horror movie, he would hold my hand and scream and cry the whole time. It was so unbearable. I told him over and over again that he should toughen up, which he always replied to with, "Okay, boss," which made me feel even angrier. I tried to overlook it until one day something happened that made me feel like I couldn't bear it anymore. On that day, George and I were walking down the street after school, and some kids started picking on us. They were making fun of George and I for being a weird couple and started calling us names like the chicken and gorilla. Then they started asking George questions like, "What does it feel like to kiss a gorilla twice your size?" Even though we decided to ignore them, hearing these words made me feel very angry, and I couldn't stay silent anymore. I looked at George, and he looked clueless. I whispered to him, asking if he was just going to let them talk about me like that. But George didn't have the guts to say anything, and he just stayed quiet. Unlike him, I couldn't hold it in anymore. So I stopped and turned back to them and said, "What did you say now?" with an angry, loud voice. As I was walking towards them, they started screaming and running away. They were scared because they obviously knew how strong I was and that I could kick their butts. George just laughed and said, "Good job, Jackie. You sure made them scared, boss." But I didn't smile back at him. I was so pissed because it was not my job to scare them off. It was his. He was the one who was supposed to make me feel protected and safe, and he was far from doing that. I looked at George and said that I didn't want to be with him anymore. I said, "We are over," and turned to walk home. George called out my name, but I didn't even respond. He made me feel so embarrassed. After a couple of days, I told my girlfriends that I finally broke up with George, and they were thrilled. They cheered me and said that I needed to be with someone who is strong and fearless, but I wasn't exactly feeling it. However, when it was their turn to talk about their boyfriend problems, all I heard was how their relationships sucked. One of them was angry at her boyfriend because he doesn't help her when she asks him to. And another girl was upset that her boyfriend never asks her for permission when he should. I didn't even understand how they allowed their boyfriends to control them like that. As I sat there listening, I started to understand how things would be if George was like typical boyfriends. And to be honest, I wasn't going to settle for that in any way. I couldn't deny that I actually enjoyed being in charge. After all, being in control really did suit me. I am an alpha girl. I was meant to be a leader, and George happily embraced that part of me. I got to be the one who wore the pants. Seriously, how could I ask for a better relationship? With these thoughts running through my head, I excused myself and immediately went to see George. Days had passed since I last spoke to him, and I kind of felt bad about it. He kept texting me and tried calling me. I never replied to anything. So on my way, I texted him that I was coming over. When I arrived, I saw George on the other side of the street, waiting for me. When he saw me, his face lit up, and he immediately gave me a big hug and said that he missed me. Right after, he started apologizing for what happened and said that he should have been more tough. I told him we were okay and that he doesn't need to apologize for anything, because the truth is, I like him just the way he is. And if I were really being honest, I was happy to be the boss, and I like feeling powerful. George looked so relieved to hear me say that and gave me a big hug and whispered in my ear, "That would be just perfect." I whispered back, "Tell me that I'm the boss one more time." George laughed and said, "Of course, baby, you're the boss," and he kissed me. While some people might still think that we have a weird relationship, George and I are perfectly happy this way, and I wouldn't change it for the world.